I've been a car sharing host for over 5 years. I have over 3,000 trips on the Turo platform, and I currently own 24 vehicles in my fleet. But if I'm being honest, I've probably owned dozens of more over the last few years, but they've either been sold or totaled. And over the course of my Turo career, I have watched a lot of hosts come and go. Hosts that have had their cars in accidents or get totaled, hosts that aren't making enough money, or hosts that feel as though they've been burned by Turo and thus they want to leave the platform altogether. But the thing is, a lot of these mistakes that are made by rookie Turo hosts are mistakes that are entirely preventable. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what you must know and what you must be prepared for before you start your Turo and car sharing business. I'm going to be going over some of the most common mistakes that I've seen and ways that you can avoid them yourself. So let's get started. Now, for those of you who are interested in car sharing and starting your own peer-to-peer car sharing business, I do have a course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, which teaches you everything that you need to know about starting and scaling your car sharing business with the same business model that I use. Whenever you purchase the course, you get access to 7 hours worth of course content, our private Discord, and our monthly live Zoom calls. I'm also in the middle of re-recording and redoing the course, which all current students will get access to, and this new iteration will be released this summer. So if you want to check it out, the link is down in the description below. Now, the first and most important thing that every single Turo and car sharing host should do is read the terms of service. Now, I know that whenever many of us think of terms of service, we think of a very lengthy document that we have to read before we sign up for a service or whenever we open the App Store or things like that. And the thing is that while many of us don't read terms of service, I know that I don't read most of them, reading the Turo terms of service is so incredibly important because not only does it outline the terms of service, but it also outlines how you need to conduct your business in order to protect yourself. I see so many new Turo hosts on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok who make extremely rookie but extremely severe mistakes that could have been entirely prevented by simply reading the terms of service. The thing about Turo is that the bad things that could happen to you as a Turo host oftentimes get mitigated by simply reading, reviewing, and following the terms of service. So whether your car gets stolen, whether it's in an accident, whether somebody dies in your car, you are covered as a Turo host as long as you follow that terms of service. And if you don't follow the terms of service, you are open to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of liabilities. And this is incredibly risky. I see so many rookie questions online, like how do I request reimbursement? When do I need to check in cars? Can I charge an X, Y, and Z fee? And the thing is, all of these questions are very clearly outlined and defined within the terms of service. I am a firm believer that nobody should join Turo, nobody should list a car, nobody should even think about growing a car sharing fleet until they've read the Turo terms of service. It is a pretty easy read. It could take an afternoon if you read fast. If you wanted to read slowly and really digest it, you could get it knocked out within a week. It is something that you absolutely should do. And on the same topic of the terms of service is the topic of damage claims. And whenever you look up Turo online, whether it be on YouTube, on Reddit, on Facebook, you are no doubt going to find probably hundreds of different horror stories from hosts that feel as though they've been screwed by Turo because Turo denied their damage claim. And now these hosts are out tens of thousands of dollars. But the thing is that I have never in my 5.5-year-long career on Turo found a Turo host that had been screwed by Turo whenever they did everything correctly. I would say 99.9% of the time, if not 100% of the time, whenever a Turo host is screwed or taken advantage of by Turo, it is because of the fact that this host did not follow the terms of service. You'll see stories of people that have their cars wrecked, people who get kicked off of Turo, people who feel as though they've been slighted by Turo. And you will find out that once you dig into these individual stories, more often than not, the real root cause of these issues is the host not following the terms of service. It is so easily avoidable. And if you are somebody who's very interested in Turo, you have to, and I mean you have to read the terms of service. You simply cannot skip this step. The next mistake that a lot of hosts make, and something that you should absolutely be prepared to dive headfirst into, is pricing of cars that you want to buy. And I see so many hosts that simply overpay for cars, and this is a massive mistake. Now on YouTube, I talk a lot about my business model with car sharing, which is the low-end economy business model. I have 24 cars. One of those is my camper van, but the other 23 are low-end economy cash cars. These are cars that I purchased for in cash. They're a little bit older. they're a little bit higher mileage, but they target that local renter who simply wants an affordable, economical, and reliable ride. This is a business model that I feel like I've beaten like a dead horse here on YouTube. So instead of focusing on this business model specifically in this video, I instead want to talk about the idea of buying cars below market value as well as at the lowest point in their depreciation curve. Now, buying a car below market value is the idea of buying a car for cheaper than what that car is worth. And the way that you determine the actual market value worth of a car is through a few different resources. Of course, KBB is a great resource that you can use. You can also lean on resources like Car Gurus as well, but also going onto third-party platforms like cars.com or Facebook are really great ways to see what cars are actually worth and what they are selling for. At the end of the day, a car is only worth how much somebody's willing to pay for it. So by going onto these third-party platforms and seeing what cars are being listed for, how long they're staying on these platforms for, how quickly they're selling, it gives you a good idea of how much this car is actually worth in present day. And if you're buying a car below market value, you're going to want to buy a car below that price, somewhere between 10 and 20%. For example, just last week, I purchased a Lexus ES350. This is a car that's getting added to my get-around fleet, and I purchased this car for $6,500. But whenever I looked up the value of this car and how much it's actually selling for, it's closer to actually $9,500. This means that I underpaid for this car by about $3,000. But the thing is, below market value cars aren't exclusive to low-end economy cars. You can also apply the same methodology to higher-end cars, luxury cars, more expensive vehicles. On this same point is buying a car at the lowest point in the depreciation curve. This is what I exclusively do. So whenever you look at a depreciation curve map of a vehicle, you will see that within the first few years of that car being purchased new, it will depreciate a substantial amount in value. You will get the most depreciation hit that you will see with that car in those first few years. That means that if you were to buy a car at the highest point in its depreciation curve whenever it's brand new, and then you were to keep that car for 2 or 3 years and then you would sell it, you would lose a huge amount of value off of that car ownership, possibly 20, 30, 40%. But alternatively, if you were to buy a car at the lowest point in the depreciation curve, you were to keep that car for a few years and then sell it, there is a high likelihood that you could sell that car for the same price as whenever you bought it for. That's basically free ownership. The reason why buying below market value and at the lowest point in the depreciation curve is so important in the context of Turo is that whenever you have cars in your Turo fleet, they are going to depreciate fast due to excessive miles, wear and tear, guests just simply not taking care of the car. And because of this, if you ever get to the point where you need to sell a car, you leave yourself open to steep losses if you overpaid for that car whenever you bought it. These are losses that as you're operating your Turo fleet aren't really realized losses because it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. But the moment that you go to sell that car, you're gonna have to eat the cost of that, and that's gonna hurt. This is especially true if you're somebody that has a loan associated with that vehicle. And there is a chance that you could even be underwater on that car. And the last mistake that I wanna talk about is one that I've been seeing increasingly often in the Turo community, and that is buying new, very entry-level vehicles. I'm talking about things like Hyundais, Mazdas, Kias, newer vehicles that cost anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000, but the cars aren't anything special. This is a huge mistake, and in my opinion, I think it's setting a host up for failure. I think it's putting a host in an unnecessary amount of debt, and the ROI simply does not make sense. What I'm specifically talking about here is buying brand new or even slightly used mid-level entry cars. Things like Kias, Hyundais, Mazdas, cars that are really basic on the surface, but they still have a pretty high price tag because of the fact that they're newer. Something in that $20,000 to $30,000 range that's maybe like a 2021 to 2023. People oftentimes buy newer cars for their Turo fleet because they think that a 2023 model is automatically going to make significantly more than, say, a 2015 or a 2011 or even a 2018. But this logic isn't true. Sure, in some cases it is. If you have a 2022 Rivian or a 2022 Bronco, that car is going to do very, very well because it's a hot, highly sought after car. But if you buy a 2023 Kia Rio, that Kia Rio will not make much more, if any more, than a 2015 Kia Rio that cost a quarter of the price. I see this all the time where people will buy a newer model car with the expectation that it will make a lot of money per day, but then whenever you compare it to cars that are 10 years older and a quarter of the price, they make about the same on a daily trip price. Rather than just simply buying a newer car because you think it's going to do better, I would encourage you to really do research on your individual market. Figure out what your market needs, figure out what cars are performing well with your market, and always take into account and keep in mind how much the cost of the car is versus how much it's renting for on a daily basis. It's really easy to do this research yourself. You simply go onto Turo, you look at your market, you see what type of car you're considering buying, you find out how much those cars are renting for on a daily rate, and then you simply see how much those cars actually cost to buy. To give you a point of reference, most of the cars in my fleet cost me between $4,000 and $7,000. But whenever it comes to how much they're renting for on a daily basis, it averages anywhere between $25 and $45 per day. Again, I understand not everybody is jazzed about the low-end economy model, and that is totally fine. But whenever you're buying cars for your car sharing fleet, always keep that ratio in mind. How much did the car cost versus how much is it renting for on a daily basis? And make sure that those numbers make sense. At the end of the day, whenever it comes to car sharing hosts failing at Turo, I think there are a couple of main causes. Number one is people overpaying for a car, and thus they're not making enough money. Number two is people having unrealistic expectations to either how much you can make or about how the entire business model will operate. And number three, people who simply do not read the Turo terms of service, and as a result, they've been burned by a serious claim. These are all scenarios that play out all the time with Turo hosts, and they are simply entirely preventable. So if you are somebody who's interested in starting a car sharing business, this is absolutely where I would start. Do your research, find the right car that rents for the right price, and please read the Turo terms of service. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video.